Have you ever been humiliated in front of others, caught off guard by a cruel joke, a disrespectful comment, or a dismissive look that made you feel invisible? Have you ever walked away from a moment like that, replaying it in your head, wishing you'd responded differently, not with rage or revenge, but with unshakable dignity? What if the real power doesn't lie in striking back, but in standing so firmly in your own worth that no insult can reach you? There are moments in life that test more than your temper, they test your presence, your character, and your ability to rise without raising your voice. Public disrespect is one of the most common yet painful experiences we all face. Whether it's a sarcastic jab at work, an embarrassing interruption in a meeting, or someone deliberately dismissing your presence at a gathering, the sting is real. But here's the truth. How you respond to these moments doesn't just define how others see you, it defines how you see yourself. The most powerful form of respect is not something you ask for. It's not something you chase. It's something you command, silently, through the unwavering way you hold yourself, even when someone else tries to knock you off center. The Stoics, ancient thinkers who mastered the art of self-possession, taught that dignity isn't granted by others. It's cultivated from within. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Respect, then, is never a matter of dominance, but of composure. It's about showing that your worth isn't up for negotiation, not by arguing, not by retaliating, but by calmly drawing the line that no one is allowed to cross. In the chapters that follow, we'll dive deep into the practical ways Stoic wisdom helps you build that kind of inner strength. We'll explore how subtle shifts in behavior, like eye contact, silence, stillness, and disengagement, can turn disrespect into a mirror, reflecting not your weakness but your resilience. If you've ever felt belittled, unseen, or underestimated, this isn't just advice, it's a path to reclaiming yourself. Because true respect begins the moment you no longer need it from anyone else to believe you deserve it. First impressions matter. How small gestures command respect. In a world where attention is scarce and judgment comes fast, first impressions are more than just introductions. They are silent declarations of who we are and what we stand for. If you've ever walked into a room full of strangers, sat through an interview, or joined a conversation for the first time, you know how much weight those initial seconds carry. And yet, what many overlook is that these moments aren't won through clever words or grand gestures, but through something far simpler, the presence you bring. Picture this: a crowded seminar, buzzing with ambition. Professionals exchange handshakes and names, scanning the room for opportunity. Amid this, one man rises to greet each person who approaches him. Whether it's a senior executive or a server pouring coffee, he stands tall, looks them in the eye, and offers a firm handshake. There's no arrogance in his posture, only grounded presence. No exaggeration in his tone, only quiet sincerity. By the end of the day, people don't just remember his name, they remember how they felt in his presence. He didn't speak louder than others, but he was heard more clearly. He didn't demand attention, yet he commanded respect. In contrast, not far from him sat another attendee, smart, articulate, capable in every measurable way, but he remained seated during every interaction, barely looking up as people passed by, not out of disrespect, but perhaps out of habit or distraction. And yet, without meaning to, He sent a message that the conversation wasn't worth his full presence. People noticed, even if they didn't say it aloud. Opportunities passed by him unnoticed, while the other man's calendar filled with follow-ups and connections. What changed? Not competence, not credentials, just one small act: rising to meet others, both physically and energetically. Stoic philosophy teaches us that character is not proven in moments of spotlight but in how we show up consistently in the little things. Marcus Aurelius didn't write meditations on grand achievements. He wrote about eye contact, tone of voice, and how to walk through a hallway without arrogance. Why? Because these micro behaviors reflect macro values. The act of standing up when someone approaches you isn't simply etiquette, it is an embodiment of attentiveness, self-respect, and mutual regard. It communicates that you are fully here, that you recognize the humanity in others, and that your presence is intentional. Every gesture becomes a signal. Eye contact shows you are engaged. Posture communicates strength or passivity, and silence either calms the room or creates discomfort. In Stoic practice, every action we take must align with our internal values. Because we cannot control what others think, but we can absolutely control the energy we bring. That control, when practiced consistently, becomes a force that shapes how people interact with us. If your goal is to earn respect without ever asking for it, begin with your body. Stand when someone enters the space, not because you're trying to impress, but because you honor the moment. Offer a handshake like you mean it, not out of ritual, but as a bridge between two equal minds. Look someone in the eye, not to intimidate, but to acknowledge them fully. These aren't just habits, they're philosophies in motion. They're proof that you are not living reactively, but with awareness and intention. I remember a mentor once told me, "How you enter a room speaks louder than anything you'll say in it." I didn't understand it then. I thought words mattered more. But over time, I saw how the people others gravitate toward are those who carry themselves with grace, composure, and a sense of quiet authority. They don't seek validation, they emanate clarity. And it starts with presence. First impressions are not about perfection, they're about congruence. When your actions align with your inner values, people feel it. They may not be able to articulate it, but they sense something different. You don't need to perform. You need to be rooted. And that grounded state begins with how you greet the world around you. In every setting, from business to friendship, from formal events to casual meetups, remember this: respect begins before you even speak. It starts with how you stand, how you look someone in the eyes, how you signal, without words, that you value the interaction. That's what people remember. That's what makes them feel safe, seen, and respected in your presence. The Stoics didn't teach grandstanding. They taught stillness. They taught the power of presence. And in those first few moments of meeting someone, you have the opportunity to show that presence, not to impress them, but to express who you are. Every interaction becomes an extension of your inner discipline. Every handshake, a mirror of your philosophy. Commanding respect doesn't require loud declarations, it requires quiet, unwavering consistency. And it all begins the moment you choose to rise. Respond to interruptions with a calm gaze, the silent power of presence. Respect isn't earned by being louder than the room. It's earned by mastering the room without raising your voice. As we've seen, first impressions plant the seed. but it's how you uphold your presence under pressure that truly cements it. One of the most overlooked but powerful opportunities to command respect happens when someone interrupts you. It could be in a meeting, in conversation, or even during a casual gathering. That split second, where your words are cut off and someone else seizes control of the moment, can either trigger a reactive outburst or become a masterclass in poise. The choice is yours. There is a natural instinct in all of us to defend, to interrupt back, to reassert ourselves through tone or volume. But those reactions, though human, often diminish rather than elevate us. Stoicism teaches us otherwise. It teaches that power doesn't come from controlling the external world. It comes from mastering the internal. When someone interrupts you, you are being tested, not just in your patience, but in your self-command. And the most powerful response you can offer is one that requires no words, a steady, calm gaze. Imagine you're sharing your thoughts, speaking clearly and intentionally, and midway through your sentence, someone interjects. They may do it to dominate, to show off, or perhaps without even realizing it. Your voice is lost, your point derailed, and all eyes shift. What happens next? That moment, though uncomfortable, is an invitation to demonstrate your strength without a single syllable. You turn, meet their eyes, and hold your gaze, not with anger, not with arrogance, but with composed certainty. That silence, those 2 or 3 seconds of grounded stillness, communicates more than any sharp comeback ever could. I recall a dinner where this happened. A friend of mine, mid-story, was cut off by another guest who laughed over her and steered the conversation elsewhere. Rather than try to shout over or object, she paused, looked directly at him, and simply waited. Her silence was commanding, her expression steady. The table went quiet. The person who had interrupted became visibly uncomfortable, stumbled in their words, and eventually said, "Sorry, please continue." She didn't win by volume. She won by presence. This is the essence of Stoic power, not resistance through force, but through grounded stillness. When you offer no reaction, only awareness, you hold a mirror to others. The one who interrupts is forced to see their own behavior reflected back at them. It is not shame you deliver, it is accountability. And you do it with grace. The Stoics remind us that dignity is never up for negotiation. It is not dependent on how others behave, it rests entirely in how we respond. A calm gaze is not passive, it is active control. It says, "I am here. I see what just happened, and I will not be shaken." There is no need to defend your right to speak when you carry yourself as someone who knows they deserve to be heard. That energy, that quiet but unwavering certainty, makes others take notice. To practice this in your life, begin by observing your natural reactions. Notice the urge to speak over someone who disrespects you. Notice the tension that builds when your point is dismissed. Then, instead of reacting, pause, breathe, anchor yourself in your body. Look at the person, not with fire, but with clarity. Don't rush to regain control through words. Regain it through stillness. You might say afterward, calmly and respectfully, "I'll continue from where I left off." But even if you say nothing, the room has already felt the shift. People are drawn to those who can remain unbothered in the face of disruption. It shows discipline, emotional maturity, and true self-assurance. This technique isn't just about navigating public settings, it builds something deeper within. Every time you respond with a calm gaze, you train your nervous system to stay composed. You build confidence not through dominance, but through restraint. You signal to yourself that your value isn't shaken by others' behavior. And when you believe that deeply, others will too. When interruptions arise, when someone steals your voice mid-thought, remember that your reaction defines your power. You are never at the mercy of their behavior. You are at the mercy of your own discipline. And the gaze you choose in that moment? It's not just a look, it's a boundary. It's a message. And most of all, it's a mirror showing who holds the real control in the room. Asked to repeat a humiliating joke, how composure neutralizes shame. There's a particular sting in being the target of a humiliating joke, especially when it lands in front of people whose opinions matter to you. The room erupts in laughter. Your face flushes with heat. And for a moment, you're no longer a person. You've become a punchline. It happens in friend groups, family gatherings, even professional spaces. And in that fragile instant, your pride begs you to retaliate, to strike back with a sharper jab. But there's another way, one that doesn't just preserve your dignity. It strengthens it, a way that transforms a cheap attempt at humiliation into an awkward echo of itself. Calmly asking the person to repeat the joke. It sounds counterintuitive, even risky, but this small, deliberate move, delivered not with sarcasm or mockery, but with genuine calm, disarms the room. I remember sitting in a cafe with a group of friends I hadn't seen in years. The atmosphere was light, full of old stories and easy banter. Then, without warning, someone brought up a clumsy, painful moment from my teenage years, a story I hadn't thought about in years, but one that still carried weight. The group laughed. I felt it rising inside me, the embarrassment, the desire to vanish or retaliate. But instead, I looked at him and said, "I'm not sure I caught that. Can you repeat it?" The laughter stopped. His smile faltered, and the moment unraveled. Asking someone to repeat a joke, especially one meant to humiliate, does something profound. It forces them to reflect, often for the first time, on the cruelty or immaturity behind their words. The energy in the room shifts. People begin to realize that what they laughed at wasn't harmless fun. It was a subtle act of aggression hiding behind humor. And when you remain still, unbothered, even curious, the spotlight moves, not onto you as the subject, but onto them as the source. Stoic philosophy teaches that we are not disturbed by things themselves, but by our interpretation of them. A humiliating joke only has power if we assign it weight. But when you remain emotionally unmoved, when you respond with clarity instead of offense, you demonstrate something few people ever master: control over your internal world. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that external slights are powerless unless he chooses to suffer them. This isn't detachment, it's strength. There's another layer of brilliance here. By calmly asking the joker to repeat their words, you give them space to self-correct without confrontation. You don't shame them, you don't escalate, you hold up a mirror, and in most cases, they won't like what they see. The words that felt powerful the first time often fall flat when spoken again under scrutiny. Their delivery becomes unsure, the punchline loses its edge, and the laughter fades. And without raising your voice or changing your tone, you've reclaimed the narrative. This approach doesn't require sharp wit or rehearsed comeback. It requires restraint. It requires belief in your own worth, so deeply rooted that no amount of ridicule can loosen it. And most importantly, it requires the courage to choose presence over pride. Stoicism asks us to remember that what doesn't harm our character cannot harm our peace. Embarrassment is not a fact, it is a reaction. And you always have the power to change your response. To apply this, remember a few essentials. Pause before reacting. Take a breath. Look the person in the eye. And calmly, without malice, say, "Sorry, I didn't hear you. Would you mind saying that again?" Keep your expression neutral, not smug. Not wounded, just centered. Trust the silence. If they repeat it, it will almost always feel forced and unfunny. If they decline, the discomfort will speak for itself. Either way, you've elevated yourself above the game. This isn't about revenge or passive aggression. It's about choosing not to be defined by someone else's poor judgment. It's about showing that your self-respect is too stable to be shaken by someone's fleeting attempt at humor. When you hold your ground in this way, others feel it, they take note, they begin to understand that you are not to be toyed with, and not because you punish people, but because you won't entertain disrespect. There's a quiet nobility in not reacting, in refusing to feed a moment meant to reduce you, in turning embarrassment into awkwardness, for the one who tried to bring you down. That is the essence of strength. That is how Stoics turn humiliation into grace. And in doing so, you remind everyone watching, including yourself, that your value was never up for ridicule in the first place. Diffuse provocation with an unrelated question. Reclaim control without conflict. There is a certain kind of moment that sneaks up on you, a sharp comment, a passive-aggressive jab, or a deliberately crafted remark meant to hit a nerve. It usually comes when you're least expecting it, often in a public setting where everyone turns to see how you'll respond. And in that instant, your instinct might be to react, to defend yourself, to restore your image. But Stoicism offers a wiser path, one that not only protects your peace, but redefines the dynamic altogether. It begins not with confrontation, but with redirection. Instead of answering provocation with explanation or emotion, you respond with something entirely different, a simple, unrelated question. Imagine being at a dinner table, surrounded by colleagues or family. The conversation is flowing when someone suddenly pivots and delivers a subtle insult masked as humor, referencing a recent setback in your life or an old mistake that still lingers. Eyes shift toward you. Silence follows. You can feel the weight of the moment asking you to react. But you pause, and instead of defending or retaliating, you ask, "Has anyone tried that new bakery on 4th Street? I heard they make the best almond croissants." Just like that, the tension begins to dissolve. This isn't escapism, this is precision. By interrupting the emotional trajectory of the conversation, you take back control. The instigator is left off balance, unsure of how to continue. The room follows your energy, and the topic changes. What seemed like an attack becomes a faded moment, forgotten not because you resisted it, but because you refused to feed it. The brilliance of this move lies in its simplicity. You're not ignoring what was said, you're rising above it. You're choosing not to give it the significance it was designed to provoke. And in doing so, you disarm the attacker, not with force, but with grace. It's a demonstration of strength that doesn't need to announce itself. The very absence of conflict becomes the loudest signal in the room. This kind of mastery requires practice. Our instinct, shaped by ego and emotion, often pushes us toward reaction. But every moment of provocation is also a moment of choice. The Stoics understood this deeply. Epictetus taught that it's not the event itself that harms us, but our interpretation of it. By changing the story we tell ourselves, we reclaim authorship of the moment. An unrelated question is more than a distraction. It's a declaration that your inner world cannot be hijacked by external chaos. There's another layer of power here. Asking something mundane, something light, draws attention to the absurdity of the provocation. It communicates that you are not shaken, that your dignity is untouched, and that your mind is not available for petty games. This creates discomfort, not for you, but for the person who tried to pull you into emotional reaction. And that discomfort is earned, not through revenge, but through composure. To make this work, tone is everything. The question must feel natural, not forced. It must match the energy of the setting, as if it truly was on your mind. This is what makes the shift feel effortless, not theatrical. It invites others to follow your lead without realizing it, guiding the group back to connection and away from conflict. And while the instigator may realize they've lost control of the moment, you walk away having lost nothing, except the burden of needing to defend yourself. I've witnessed this firsthand. At a team lunch, one person made a subtle jab at a colleague's failed project. The room went quiet, tension rising. Instead of defending or explaining, the colleague leaned in and said, "Does anyone know a good hiking trail for the weekend? I need something peaceful." The tension broke like a wave. People chimed in, the subject changed, and just like that, the dignity of silence spoke louder than any argument could. Stoicism teaches us that true power is not in domination, but in discipline. When you choose to remain composed in moments meant to unseat you, you're not just keeping the peace, you're sending a message to everyone present: my peace is mine. And it's not negotiable. Asking an unrelated question doesn't mean you've lost control. It means you've transcended the need to control others and have focused entirely on controlling yourself. In a world where drama often rewards reaction, choosing neutrality becomes radical, choosing stillness becomes courageous, and choosing to steer the moment, not with force, but with subtlety, is a mark of profound inner mastery. This is the strength Stoicism offers, not the power to dominate the conversation, but the power to rise above it. Not the need to prove yourself right, but the wisdom to walk calmly past the noise. When the air is thick with tension, and eyes turn to you for a reaction, ask something unexpected, something ordinary, something real, and watch how silence turns into space. Watch how power returns to presence. Watch how respect, once fragile, becomes anchored in the steadiness of your mind. Walk away when disrespected, the power of choosing yourself. There comes a moment in life when silence no longer protects you. When staying doesn't make you stronger, it simply drains the strength you've spent years building. Disrespect isn't always loud. Often, it's subtle, disguised as casual disregard, consistent dismissal, or the quiet erosion of acknowledgement. You speak, and your words disappear. You contribute, and your efforts vanish into the void. And at first, you tell yourself to try harder, to give more, to prove more, to wait for the tide to turn. But deep inside, something wiser whispers, this isn't growth, it's slow self-abandonment. And in that realization, Walking away becomes not a retreat, but a declaration. Sarah knew this feeling intimately. She was brilliant, driven, and deeply committed to her work. When she joined a new company, she poured her energy into every task. But instead of appreciation, she received indifference. Her manager frequently cut her off in meetings. Her ideas were overshadowed or ignored, and every attempt to assert herself was met with subtle resistance. She told herself to be patient. She gave more. She stayed late. She sacrificed. And still, the respect she hoped for never arrived. It wasn't one moment that broke her. It was the slow, steady burn of being unseen. And then, in a pivotal meeting, she presented a thoughtful, well-researched strategy. Before she could finish, her manager dismissed it with a casual wave and shifted the conversation elsewhere. No critique, no engagement, just erasure. She looked around the room and saw nothing but blank faces. No one stood up for her. No one even blinked. That was the moment Sarah made a choice, not in anger, not in haste, but with quiet finality. She closed her laptop, stood up, and said, "I think it's time I spend my energy where it's valued." Then she walked out, not just from the meeting, but from the company. Some might call that quitting. But Sarah wasn't quitting on herself, she was reclaiming herself. Months later, she joined another organization, this time in a leadership role. There, her voice was heard, her ideas mattered, her energy was met with respect, not resistance. And it wasn't because she had changed. It was because she had finally chosen a space that matched her value. Stoic philosophy teaches us that respect is not something you extract from others, it's something you embody. And when a space refuses to recognize your worth, the most powerful response isn't to shout louder. It's to walk away with your dignity intact. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. What you do with that power defines your freedom." Choosing to leave a disrespectful environment is not weakness, it is wisdom. It's a refusal to be complicit in your own devaluation. Walking away isn't about making a statement to others, it's a promise to yourself. A promise that you won't sacrifice your peace, your brilliance, or your self-worth to earn crumbs of validation. It's the understanding that staying somewhere that diminishes you is a betrayal of everything you've worked for. And it's not about being perfect. It's about being aligned, about knowing that even when the world doesn't reflect your value, you carry it anyway. This choice isn't always easy. It's especially hard when you've invested time, energy, even identity into a role, a relationship, or a community. The fear of loss whispers that maybe you're being too sensitive, that maybe things will change if you just hold on. But here's the truth. The longer you stay where you are not respected, the more you teach yourself that it's acceptable. And over time, that internal standard erodes. The world reflects how you treat yourself, not how loudly you demand to be treated. To walk away is to choose freedom. It's to say, I will not shrink to fit inside a space that cannot hold my value. I will not fight for recognition where there is only resistance. I will not barter my self-respect for temporary belonging. This doesn't make you bitter, it makes you brave. It means you trust yourself enough to believe that something better exists, and that you are worthy of it. The most powerful exits are not dramatic, they are deliberate. No shouting, no slamming doors, just clarity, just a quiet understanding that you are done sacrificing yourself for approval. That kind of departure echoes long after you leave. It lingers in the silence, It forces others to question their own roles in what happened. And more importantly, it clears the space for something new to emerge, something truer, richer, more aligned with who you are becoming. When you walk away from a space that no longer sees you, you don't just reclaim your power, you redefine it. You stop chasing respect and start embodying it. You stop begging for belonging and start becoming your own anchor. This is what the Stoics meant by control, not the domination of others, but the dominion over your own decisions. And if there's one thing that commands more respect than any argument, any title, any plea, it's the unwavering courage to walk away without fear, without apology, and without losing yourself. Final thoughts and call to action. Earning respect through who you become. Respect is not something you demand, it is something you consistently embody. It doesn't arrive through confrontation, titles, or approval. It arrives when your behavior, presence, and values speak louder than any claim you could make. Every decision you take, every boundary you uphold, and every moment you choose composure over chaos sends a message, not just to others, but to yourself, that you are someone who deserves to be treated with dignity. Because you live with it. Throughout everything we've explored, one truth stands clear. The foundation of respect begins within. When you stand to greet someone with sincerity, when you respond to interruption not with ego but with steadiness, when you disarm humiliation with silence or redirection, and when you walk away from places that diminish you, you declare something powerful. You are not ruled by what others do. You are led by who you choose to be. These aren't tricks. They're not tactics to manipulate perception. They are practices rooted in self-awareness. Each one requires a deep commitment to growth, to mastery, to becoming the kind of person who doesn't just command respect, but earns it quietly, consistently, and without ever needing to explain why. This is the Stoic path. Not showy, not loud, grounded, quietly resilient, unshakable. If you've felt yourself in any of the situations we've discussed, interrupted, mocked, dismissed, or disrespected, know this: it wasn't your fault, but it is your responsibility to decide how you rise from it. And there is strength in every pause, in every calm breath, in every silent stand you take for yourself. People will notice. More importantly, you will notice, because the real victory is not in how others see you, but in how deeply you begin to believe in your own worth. It takes courage to live with that kind of discipline, to remain calm when provoked, to choose stillness when pressured, to walk away when ignored. That's why practicing these lessons is more than a habit. It's a declaration that you are committed to becoming someone who no longer reacts impulsively, but responds intentionally. That kind of presence changes every room you walk into. That kind of energy changes the course of your life. If you're ready to put this into practice, not just once but as a way of being, leave a comment below that says, "I can do it," not for me, not for validation, but as a signal to yourself and others that you're stepping into the next level of your character. It's a simple phrase, but powerful when spoken with conviction. Because saying, "I can do it," doesn't just refer to handling disrespect. It means you believe in your ability to rise above whatever the world throws at you. With clarity, with peace, and with unshakable integrity. If this message resonated with you, I encourage you to like this video, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe to this channel. Every week, we explore deeper ways to build a life of purpose, resilience, and power, without losing yourself in the noise. Join this community of individuals who are choosing to live by principles, not reactions, who are training their minds to be calm, even in chaos, who understand that respect isn't won, it's earned through how you carry yourself when no one's watching, and especially when everyone is. Thank you for walking this path with me today. You're not just learning Stoic philosophy, you're living it. And that, more than anything else, is what makes people respect you, not because you asked for it, but because you became someone who didn't need to. See you in the next video.